you always know when you're doing something if it's the wrong thing. It's hard to figure out if it's the right thing. I can always tell when I'm in tune with, I feel like, my calling, when I'm constantly in prayer about my situation. And
that's
reading and praying and then feeling at peace with it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people might say, oh, well, if I pray a lot and it feels like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, like, then I can just run and do it. But I like that. Like, you're actually saying the opposite, is that I'm sensing that I'm more in God's will the more I pray, because it's driving me to that. Like, totally. I recognize the need for his presence in my life. That's really beautiful.
What does it mean to be called? What does it mean to live your life with purpose and intentionality? What if your calling was something like playing basketball? Well, if you're as curious about finding those things out as we are, join us for the rest of this episode as we interview Nolan Ebel, professional basketball player and great all-around guy. Check it out.
All right, well, I want to welcome you to Storycast, the official podcast of Story Church, where we tell stories that change lives. And today, this is my friend Nolan Ebel, who is a semi-professional. I don't even know if that's really a term, semi-professional. He's a professional basketball player. He just graduated from Augustana University this last year, is an All-American basketball player. Great dude. We met at a church here in the Midwest, but his family lives in Colorado, which is where I'm from as well. So we immediately connected. And I just wanted to talk to Nolan today, kind of hear his story. And so welcome to Storycast, bro.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. It's great to see your face. Looks like you've got your warm-ups on, man.
Yeah, out in Spain, I just got back. These were some of the gear that they handed out, so I thought I'd represent.
Right on. So tell me a little bit about your journey with basketball and your faith.
Yeah, well, it really has been a crazy story, like we've talked about. But I mean, just from a basketball perspective, I think the reason that I play basketball is to do ministry and try to, preach the gospel in any way that I can. And for me, I felt called to do that in a profession that is primarily more secular, I would say. So I think that for me, coming from where I came from, I was always the smallest kid. I was always the underdog. I was always looked past my whole life pretty much in sports and athletics, and I was never really that good. And when I started finding success, I really started, realizing that I'm putting so much time and effort into this. And if I'm going to spend however many hours a day training, I want to do it for ways that glorify God in some way. And so the journey of figuring out what that looks like and how I put that into my life has been years and years of work and prayer and people talking to mentors. And ultimately it came down to, I went to college and I was pretty much overlooked, didn't really have any offers really, and then was able to find success. And honestly, personally, I think God loves underdog stories. So once I started finding success, I was like, hey, well, I think that there's no way I could have done this if it wasn't for the Lord in my life. Nothing that I've accomplished, anyone would have ever said I could have accomplished, even me. And it's that's not because I'm anything special. I really think it's because the Lord has worked through basketball in my life. And then finally, I would think the game changer for me is I had somebody say, you know what, Nolan, why do you play basketball a couple years ago? And I was like, well, I just love the rush of running out on the court and, people calling your name and the recognition and all this stuff. And he just looks at me and he goes, that's too bad, man. I'm sorry that that's your reasoning, and walked away. And I was and we were at a Christian camp serving together. So I was like, wait, come back here. What are you talking about? What do you mean? And he's like, you're going to put all this effort into something and all for selfish reasons. And I was like, wow, like that hit really close to home and hit me hard. So it took me about like 6 months to be like, okay, what is my why? Like, I know that I can try to influence people and try to use my platform to try to do good, but like on a daily basis, like what am I doing to do ministry through this? And so then my mindset totally changed to like, okay, this is my form of ministry. I think we, like, everyone in the world is doing something every day or something that they're passionate about. And maybe it's not just preaching at a church. For some people it is, but for other people, it's working at an office or playing a sport or whatever you're doing. I think we all have a platform to do ministry through that platform. So from then on, pretty much my whole life is, you know what, I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to build that platform. Not for selfish reasons or ego or anything like that, but just the more people, the bigger my platform, the more people I can, you know, share the gospel with. So
That's great, man. I love the idea that you're trying to find the why, and you know that there's a lot of discussion in culture right now about, you know, starting with why and finding your why and what's your white hot why and all those things. And
yeah,
like I think it's because it's really important. We respond to that because why is ultimately like, what's your story? You know,
yeah,
what
totally.
your story is, what sort of um, it helps you like locate where you are in, you know, stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It sort of locates you in time. It helps to sort of like identify who you are and the value that you uniquely bring to the world. And I love what you said a second ago about whether, you know, whether you're preaching or whether you're, you know, playing basketball or you're a stockbroker or whatever it is that you're doing, we all have a platform. And
Yeah,
that's one
totally.
of the things that I really hope to do with this podcast particularly, is to tell stories of people who are using the platform that God has given them. One
Yeah,
of my favorite quotes is by Saint Irenaeus, and he says that the glory of God is man fully alive. And in other words, like, we're all gifted uniquely. We all have
yeah,
different skills, different experiences, different giftings, different talents. And when we use the things that God has put in us, whether we're, you know, in the church or not, like those things intrinsic. And so you being a basketball player, you being an athlete, you be doing the things that God has uniquely gifted you to do brings him glory. And I love that about your story. I love that about you. And you know, you and I have talked about this quite a bit
mhm,
over the last couple of years. But I love the way that you have sort of created an intentional platform. And so I guess what one of the questions I would have about that would be, what does that look like practically for you? I mean, you say, hey, I want to create a platform so I can do ministry, doing basketball. Like, you know, for people who are like, you know, familiar with basketball and familiar with, you know, like the church, for instance, like what does ministry look like in
yeah.
basketball?
That's a great question, and that's something that really I've battled with, because if you watch me play, I go pretty hard and I'm, you know, really aggressive and things like that. So I think the misconception is that it's like you're gonna be, you know, like friend, like, oh, are you okay? Like play kind of soft, but I really don't think that that's how it needs to be. I think it's all about the intention. And for me, it started with just my prayer before the games. I used to just always pray like, you know, God, like, help me win, help me do well, blah blah blah. And then after that conversation with that guy, my mindset kind of changed. I was like, God, like, whatever you have planned, like, you know more than me. Um, Use this time that there's people looking at me to do whatever you feel is like supposed to happen. Like, I just
Yeah,
give it all to you. If that means I lose every game, like, whatever. And it was amazing because I would just do little things. Like when I would get announced, I'd like point up to God, like give him the glory. And after the game, you know, being respectful to people during the game, we're going at it. But then afterwards to go, um, like say like, hey, great game, pull somebody aside, talk to them. It's not always, I think in basketball, you like going up and maybe going out of your way to say like, hey, like talk about Jesus right away. I think that somebody told me one time, actually, it's part of the Alcoholics Anonymous program. They talk about attraction over promotion.
Mm.
And I think that that's pretty important, because just the way that you live should be a reflection of Jesus, rather than they should look at you and say, okay, I think there's something different about that person, because they live a different way, they value different things. And that's the kind of the route that I've taken with basketball, is less about, kind of in your face type ministry, rather than I've had like countless conversations of like, hey, I saw you praying before the game. Like, what are you doing? Like, why do you do that? And I think that, at least from my experience, that has been more successful. So for me, it's more about, just like my intention going in and being vocal about my values and beliefs, and then just hoping that maybe that rubs off on one person or two people. And it was crazy, because going into my senior year is when I had that, or going into my senior year, I really that was really my intention. And I really didn't think that I was doing enough. I was really struggling with like, my whole goal is to use this for ministry, but I don't feel like I'm doing enough, because I'm not preaching, or I'm not doing this and that. And then I just started getting letters from people like talking about faith. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, when I was struggling with that, God's like, you know what? I got it taken care. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
And I think that in little ways, just living a certain way can be attractive to people that are living in the world.
Yeah, I like that. I think I want to say it was Martin Luther that said the Christian shoemaker doesn't glorify God by putting little crosses on his shoes. He glorifies God by making good shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
You don't glorify God playing basketball by going soft and playing, timidly. You glorify him by playing to your absolute best and trying to win. I don't know that God cares who wins and who doesn't. I don't know. That's theological territory I don't want to even get into necessarily. But I do know that he wants you and desires for you to give him your best. And I think I go back to the story about David when he wanted to make a sacrifice to the Lord, and a property owner was going to give him the property. Say, hey, build your altar here, do your thing. And David said, no, I'm going to pay for it. I refuse to give God something that costs me nothing. And I think the way you're living your life is exemplary in that way. Like, hey, because I don't know that people understand necessarily like the cost of what you're doing. Like we were just talking, trying to set up this time for today, and your schedule's a little crazy. Like you're training every day. Like you just came from training, right? You're gonna probably train more today. Walk me through like your sort of average day.
It's pretty so I wake up, train in the morning, skill work with a group of guys, and then I go to lift at 9, and then I shoot.
So like what time are you up skill training?
It kind of depends, but usually at 7.
Okay.
We start.
Okay.
7, and then 9 o'clock lift with a strength coach, and then shoot, and then lunch, and then I go do an individual skill workout with a trainer, and then eat again. Then we go play pickup with like games for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll do form shooting after that, and then eat dinner, and then go do one more like fundamentals, like mechanics shooting workout.
Yeah.
And then we do skill work from like with a different group from like usually about 8 to 10 at night.
So
it's all day.
You're really just like sitting around like dreaming of like playing in the NBA and not doing anything about it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's like a 16-hour day of training.
Yeah, sometimes I can't get up in the morning, but when you have a motivation, like, I really feel like I'm obligated to give it everything that I possibly have, because if I don't, it's not that I'm letting God down, but I feel like I'm not fulfilling my potential that He wants for
Mhm.
me to fulfill.
Yeah, I love that. And I remember actually, so I want to talk about sort of our prison ministry experience together a
Yeah,
little bit in a minute, but I remember um, being in the van with you on the way to the prison and talking about this stuff
yeah,
and saying, hey, so, you're about to graduate. What do you think? What are you going to do? And you were talking about, like, I feel like I need to just give basketball everything I am because I've got this one shot. Like, it is age limited. It
yeah,
is like, these are skills and that have diminishing returns with age. Like, I
yeah.
am not going to get up and play a professional sport anytime soon. And I'm in decent shape and I work out and whatever, but like
Hmm.
not like nothing close to what you're doing. And even if I did, I don't have those skills, obviously. But like even if I worked as hard as you work, in my mid 40s, like I'm just not going to get there. Like so, you
Yeah,
have this window of like, hey, I'm early 20s. I can work my butt off for the next several years and see how this goes, and then I know you've got some fallback plans,
yeah.
for, with marketing and ministry and whatever. But like, I just love that you have said, nope, this is my window and I'm committed to it. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, well, I appreciate the compliment. It's really just been one, and just in life. Whenever I commit to something, I want to go all out, because I'm somebody who naturally, if you look at me, I'm not very. You wouldn't look at me and go, "Wow, he's a pro basketball player." So
Yeah,
naturally,
just real quick, give us your specs.
so currently I've lost some weight because I haven't been eating enough and I've been training so much. But I'm probably 6'1", 175.
Okay. And what's your vertical?
Oh man, I haven't tested it in a while, but it's gotten better. It's probably 35, 33,
Okay.
35.
Okay. And you can dunk, right?
Yeah,
All right.
but just from like literally 10 years of squatting every day.
Right. Yeah, my son Grant, like you've this is one of my favorite things about you, Nolan, is that I have a 16-year-old boy who loves basketball, who has been to like the Augustana camps and whatever, and like he's obsessed with two things right now. One, he wants to be taller than me, and two, he wants to figure out how to dunk. So like I can't help him on the taller than me thing. Like that's, it's gonna happen or it's not gonna happen, and it's gonna happen. He'll be 6'2" soon. But like he so wants to get better and so wants to learn how to dunk, and I like you've just reached out to him like even over Instagram, like, hey bro, here's some exercises. Like he and I
Yeah,
have like added some of your exercises to our workout routine every day
that's
because
awesome.
he wants to know to dunk, and he knows that you like had to work your butt off to get there. So I love that
Yeah,
about you, bro.
yeah. Well, thank you. I think that I will never discourage anyone, especially in basketball, of like anything, because a couple of years, even my senior year of high school, if you would have said I would be playing pro, everyone would have laughed at you. So I'm like, if anyone says they want to accomplish anything, I'm fully supportive of it.
Yeah, sorry, and I totally interrupted you, so tell me about your like that focus on the window a little bit.
Oh yeah, so I mean, it's really just with pro basketball in general. Um, like I trained with one guy who's been playing for 15 years, and he's just brittle. Like, so you think of any other career, and it's like what, 30, 40 years in the career. So I just wanted to see what I can do, and chase this dream and do whatever I can for the next however many years I continue to play, and um, really just do ministry through this. So I think just the window is whenever, for me personally, the window is as long as I feel called to do this. Like I told my mom last week, if I wake up on Tuesday and I feel like God is calling me to not play basketball, there's no point in doing it anymore, because this is how I feel called to do ministry. And if that's not the reason, then I'd be done.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting approach, and I appreciate that. So, give me a sense of how or especially for people who are like, what do you mean called? Like, what does that even mean? Like, describe for me a little bit how you sense calling personally.
That's a really good question. I've spent a lot of time in prayer. Um, I've always felt like I was supposed to do ministry in some way my whole life, and obviously we met during doing prison ministry, and I've always been involved in the church in some way. And then when basketball I started to find more success in college. I was like, oh, okay, well, this is maybe the Lord telling me that I need to continue to pursue this. And then when I realized that my platform was getting bigger and bigger, and I've always really been a believer of doesn't matter how big your platform is, everyone has one. But in college, when it started to get bigger and more like national attention, I was like, why am I the only person in the room who's a believer?
Mm,
And I was like, this is really, really, really hard. And then I prayed about it a lot, and I was like, a lot of me wanted to say, you know what, like, be done. A lot of people were like, I was around some influences that a lot of people were like, hey, you should not, be around. And I just prayed a lot about it, and then really, I just felt like at peace in my heart that this is where I need to be.
yeah.
And through that, I think like some amazing stories have come out of it about influencing others and other people influencing me. And I'm super thankful that I've had those experiences. But I think for me, you always know when you're doing something if it's the wrong thing. It's
Mm,
hard to figure out if it's the right thing. So when everyone is telling me like one thing, but my heart is at peace with where I'm at, that's my biggest thing. And I
yeah.
can always tell when I'm in tune with, I feel like my calling, when I'm constantly in prayer about my situation,
Mm,
and
mm. That's interesting.
reading and praying and then feeling at peace with it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people might say, "Oh, well, if I pray a lot and it feels like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, like then I can just run and do it." But I like that. Like you're actually saying the opposite, is that the
Yeah,
I'm sensing that I'm more in God's will the more I pray because it's driving me to that. Like because
totally.
I recognize the need for His presence in my life. That's really beautiful. That's
I think
cool.
like
I'm gonna have to chew on that for a little while.
I think that it could go other ways. Like if you're like, well, I feel like God's calling me to, but I don't know. I don't know. For me, it was like a no-brainer.
Yeah,
But some people, their situations can be different, and I don't know though. For me, at least, it's the more I'm in prayer, the more that I mean, he's why I'm doing it. So I feel like I'm obligated. I'm like, all right, well, we got to talk this through. Like, are you sure you want me to do this?
right.
And then he's like, yeah, all right,
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like we're in the this process of planning a
yeah,
church in the
yeah,
middle of a global pandemic, in the middle of social and racial unrest, in what would like in some ways seem like the worst possible time to do this.
yeah,
And it constantly is driving me like, Lord, are you sure?
hmm
Are you sure this is the time? And every time, I don't know how this is for you, but for me, every time that happens, like I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe this is, maybe we're supposed to wait, or maybe whatever. Like every single time he comes through and shows me something that and speaks to me in a way that I understand. Like we were,
yeah,
questioning like, okay, well, why isn't our house selling? Why are we not ready to go? Like, and then the house sells, and then we were like, oh, well, how's this going to work? And moving back to Colorado Springs and being, you know, back home, and how are we going to not step on toes? And then
yeah,
this little church in Colorado Springs gives us a really huge financial gift in the middle of that. So like, we're just seeing multiple streams where like when we have questions, God, it sounds super cheesy, but like we have
yeah,
questions, He has answers. And I think the more you sense the importance of it, the more you sense the weight of it, the more it drives you to say, okay, God, I want to do this well. I want to do this right. I want to do this in your way and in your timing and in your providence. And the only thing we can do in that then is pray, right? Say, okay, God,
Yeah,
here I am. Do what you want with me.
totally, totally.
Yeah. So you said that you have always kind of felt called to ministry. When we have been in the prison together, you talked about how that was an area that had, really just a special place in your heart. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the ministry side of this for you.
Yeah. So I first started with prison ministry in sophomore, junior year of high school. I went on a mission trip to Nicaragua, and randomly the leader came up to me, and I didn't really know anyone. I was just random, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to speak at the prison today." And I was like scared to death. Like I was going through the hardest time of my life probably, and scared to death of talking about what was happening in my life.
Mm.
And I just again prayed about it, felt at peace with it, and just walked up there trembling, like grabbed a microphone, had a translator next to me, and like told my testimony. And I just like looked out and saw all these people that were incarcerated, but were just as broken as I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think from that point, I went back the next year, was able to speak again. And then when I got to college, it was crazy when I started to get involved with Heritage. They were like, "Hey, we're doing this prison ministry thing. You want to come?" And I was like, "All right, God, like I get it. I understand." But I personally just feel like a lot of times in the Bible, like God shows us that he wants us to be reaching out to the people that are overlooked and the people that are looked down upon, like tax collectors, prostitutes. That's who Jesus spent his time with. And it's like, okay, well, if that's who Jesus spent his time with, that's probably who we should spend our time with.
Mm.
And then through the Heritage and going and spending time there, it's like you're talking to these people, and they've been just totally kicked out of society pretty much. And yeah, they've made mistakes and things like that, but so have we, and we're all sinners and we all deserve death. So I think that as Christians, that for me, I feel like that is like number one spot to go and spend time and be around those people.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. And I've watched you just kind of come alive and just immediately embrace the guys in those settings. And a lot of guys can walk into those, myself included, the first couple times. You walk in and you're a little intimidated, like, well,
Yeah.
who are these guys? What are their stories? Are they going to like me? Am I going to have any, if I might, am I going to have anything to say that relates to them
Yeah.
at all? All the questions. But I watched you sort of just immediately just come in and go, hey guys, like, and just treat them as brothers, treat them as friends and as equals. And I think we've all often said that, we, on the days that you go to the prison, often it's like, it's the time that like, I'm tired. It's been a long week. I don't know if I really want to do it. And then you get there and they end up ministering to you every bit as much, if not more, than you did to them.
So
Like,
true.
it's
Yeah.
been like time and time and time again for me. That's been the case. Like I go in thinking that I'm gonna like, you know, sing or say or whatever, something that's going to be a benefit. And almost every time they do more for me than I think I'm doing for them. And I
Yeah.
love I love that reciprocity in the body of Christ. Like
Yeah.
when we show up for one another, and the way that interaction takes place is beautiful. But like, I've loved
Totally.
watching you in those environments because you just kind of come alive.
Thank you. Yeah, I know for a fact someday I'm gonna do something full time with that, or figure out some way to do more, be more involved with it, because I don't know, that's something that's really important to me. So being able to go with guys like you, obviously, was the highlight of my week every week. So
Mm,
I miss doing that. I want to try to get back into that once this virus is
right.
filled out
Right.
more.
Yeah, I actually was able to go down with a couple of friends and see one of the guys get released last Friday,
No way.
and
That's
it was
awesome.
really, really beautiful. A couple of guys from the ministry had showed up, and then like his dad was there, obviously, and then there was a half a dozen people from his hometown that showed up, and like with
Dang.
balloons and a card and loving on him, and like he's just completely overwhelmed with joy, and like and is free for the first time in a decade, and it was really, really beautiful. And I just count it a privilege and an honor to be able to like walk with those guys, and then to see the way that God works in their lives, and then to ultimately see them enter back into society in a healthy way. And this guy's going to go right into ministry and serving in his
Yeah.
church, and like it's pretty awesome. It's pretty
I
awesome.
mean, that's a good metaphor, sort of, for all of our lives and relationships with Jesus.
Yeah, it totally is.
Like he's waiting for us with balloons and
Mhm.
like, and we're kind of in shackles, living in the world, and um, but when we live with him, it's a party.
Yeah, yeah, that's great, man. I love that. So, give me the like, where are you at? Like, what are the plans? I know you're training a lot this summer, and
Yeah,
COVID, is kind of a limiting factor. I was like, you were in Europe playing, and then the virus hit, and that cut your season short, right?
yeah. So I was in Spain playing for Círculo Gijón in a city called Gijón, northern Spain, and the virus hit first there before it hit here. So it just got crazy, and then we were like, and I was like, we were taking pictures with fans and high fiving and stuff. So I was like freaking out, and then I got sent home, and then the virus hit home. So I had to go like 2 weeks of quarantine there, and then whatever months of quarantine here. And then I just moved to Davenport, Quad Cities, for the summer. And I'm in conversation with a couple teams that we're not supposed to talk about like yet,
Sure.
but um, we're in conversation about for next season. And the plan is to go back to Europe.
Okay.
I don't know. One team that I talked to yesterday, they start end of September. So, but I heard a lot of leagues might get postponed, or they're trying to figure out with the virus. One team said they don't even have a budget yet. So
Mhm.
it's kind of all up in the air right now. So I'm just trying to stay ready for when the call comes, because
Yeah.
obviously last year I got signed super late. So you got to be ready, because they call you on Tuesday, fly out on Thursday.
Right.
So
Right. So that reminds me of something. I know that like last year when you were waiting to get signed, and we talked several times, and it was like, and my agent, I think he's hopeful, but like I don't know, and
yeah,
I'm this D3 kid, and I didn't have the same kind of like opportunities that other guys do. And I know that you always knew that you could play at this
yeah.
level, but like what and what other people know isn't always the same, and you deal with perception and all of that. But
Totally.
like, tell me about what it was like to get out on the court and play professionally in Europe and go, oh no, I got this. I can actually play at this level.
It was well, I want to rewind real quick, because this is a crazy God thing that
Yeah.
I had to fire my first agent. Nothing against him, it just didn't work out. And I was looking for another agent, and at this time it was like the worst time of year to sign with an agent. Nobody was hiring. So I went online and sent out hundreds of emails. And after college I had interest, but now it's like months later.
Hmm.
And literally every single agent I could find online, I emailed. And the first guy I sent the email to was Saul Ares, my current agent. But then hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other emails. And everyone said no. But then Saul messaged me, who's like the number one agent in Spain, really strong believer. And he's like, I just feel, and during this time, I'm like, God, is this what you want me to do? Like, I'm giving this
Yeah.
all I have. I've been training for months. Like, I don't know. I don't know what you want from me. And he messages me like the next day. after all these people say no. And he's like, hey, can we talk on the phone? We talked for like 75% about faith, 25% about working together.
Yeah.
And then I ended up signing with him. And he's a strong Christian, and then got me my first job. So
I love that. I
crazy.
remember that. It was,
That was I was going crazy when that happened. I was so excited.
yeah.
But back to what you asked, it was really interesting because so I signed on a Tuesday, flew out on a Thursday, and I got there, had to do press conferences and like all this media stuff when I got there. So I'm on like 3 hours of sleep. I had to fly through Portugal, 9-hour layover, didn't sleep at all. So I get there, I have to do all this media and then practice, and like a day later play a game. So I walk out, and it's a home game, and there's like, I don't know, we had like a 15,000 person arena, but there were probably like 5 to 10,000 people there. And I'm like looking around, I'm in like a uniform, and I'm half asleep. I'm like, this is really cool. This is a dream come true. But like also I need to play in a game, and I'm exhausted, and I'm jet lagged, and so it was really fun, but I think that I didn't take it in as much because I was like, I just need to get through the game because I'm so tired.
Right. Right.
But it was definitely a dream come true, and just walking outside and being like, oh my gosh, I'm living in Spain was pretty cool.
Yeah. And then so before the season, like obviously the season got cut short, but what were your sort of average stats?
So in Spain,
Uh-huh.
I averaged 8 point something points per game, and like, I don't know, 2 assists, 2 rebounds or something.
Okay.
But
And it's a lower scoring league, right? Like,
yeah, the leading scorer in the league scored like 13 to 15 points a game.
okay, so for you as a rookie, come in mid-season, jet lagged, and then
Yeah,
and then average 8 points a game in, I think you said fairly limited playing time, right?
yeah,
So that had to feel like, it just had to feel good to like feel like, okay, yeah, maybe I can do this. Maybe there is hope to this whole thing, right?
totally, yeah. And then coming back here, I mean, I get to work out with NBA players and like good players and things like that. That's where I see it the most. Where I'm like, wow, this makes me feel good when we're doing a workout or something like that, and I can compete. But in Europe, it was interesting because they can only have a certain amount of Americans, so you're coming in and they're expecting you to just kill, you know? So it's an interesting dynamic being a rookie, but then also being a rookie American, because you're trying to learn everything, but then you're expected to, go off.
Right.
But it was a great learning experience, like a first year of any job, learned a
Sure.
lot. Really, 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 really excited for next year.
Yeah. So, so how can people be praying for you and supporting you as you're preparing for this next season?
I think for me right now, there's just so much uncertainty. I think like, I mean, like I plan my schedule the day before because I'm trying to figure out all these workouts, and that on top of, we don't even know if the season's going to happen or if the job's going to come or whatever. So it's kind of a day by day deal. Like yesterday, a team hit me up, but I don't, there's a lot of uncertainty, I think. And just really the prayer request would be, with all the uncertainty happening around me, that I can stay certain on why I'm doing it. Because right now I feel like I'm pretty confident in that, but there's some days where it's like it gets hard and you're up really late, and I'm on like a month by month lease, so I'm just like don't really know what's going to happen next month or next week or tomorrow even.
Right.
So the one thing that kind of keeps me going is like the certainty of why I'm doing this, and
Yeah.
obviously staying like close to Jesus throughout this whole thing is the reason that I can, stay motivated and do all that. So just for certainty in my heart of my why with all this uncertainty happening. Like,
Yeah.
I would never pray or ask for prayer requests like to, put me in the NBA or something like that. But the reason for all of this is what I would really appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Prayer.
That's good, man. That's good. So, couple of quick hits. Favorite basketball player of all time?
Michael Jordan.
Okay, favorite basketball player of all time, not Michael Jordan.
Oh, man.
Correct answer is Kobe Bryant.
Kobe, yeah. I love Kobe.
Yeah.
Actually, personally, I've taken more from Kobe than MJ.
Yeah. Yeah, people purists will hate me for this, and I'm not really a basketball guy. I'm a hockey guy, so like, what do I know? But I think Kobe is the greatest.
That's fair.
LeBron is getting there too. He's just a phenom.
Yeah.
But like, I go back to the early days, right? So like when Jordan was 18, he was, trying to play college basketball. When Kobe was 18, he was playing against Jordan in the NBA All-Star game.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, crazy, crazy good. So, and of course, he's standing on Jordan's shoulders to a certain degree with learning how to play, whatever. My preference is Kobe. What's your
his book is like, if there was a Bible of basketball, it would be the book Kobe wrote. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Changed my life.
Awesome.
From the work ethic.
So so favorite book, not the Bible?
Love Does by Bob Goff, hands
Okay.
down. Not
Okay.
even close.
Favorite TV show?
Of all
Or
time?
series?
Of all time, The Office.
Okay. Favorite movie, and I know that's a crazy question because there's so many, but like
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
All right.
It's got everything. It's got comedy, action, romance.
That's a great answer, dude. That's a great answer. I'm gonna have to steal that one. And then favorite church planner.
Oh, you.
Oh, dude. Wow, I'm so humbled by that. That's amazing that you would say that.
Dude, it's actually funny because I do know a couple other ones.
Yeah.
But they're like, by you. Come on.
Okay. All right. And then how long is it going to take before you come to Colorado Springs and hang out with us?
That's a good question. Depends if I get signed before August or not.
Okay. Well, let's get you signed, and then
if I go home before I go to Europe, 100%.
Okay.
Because
All right,
last
bro.
year I had to.
Well, I am super grateful for you and for your willingness to sit down with me. I know you got a crazy schedule. And is there a way that people can like follow you on social media or?
Yeah. My Instagram is Nolan Ebel 14, NOLANEBEL 14.
Okay.
Same with Twitter. And then you can add me on Facebook, I guess. I'm not really on TikTok. I made a couple, but they're terrible.
Yeah.
What other social media are there? I think that's about it. Mostly Instagram and Twitter is where I spend my time.
Okay, cool. Well, it's been awesome to have you on, bro. Thank you for your time. And we're super excited to see like what God does in your life and as you continue to play and even beyond that. I believe in you. I'm excited for you and
so much.
Grateful for you to be on here. So, well, again, thanks for being on the Storycast podcast. Next week, we're going to be talking to my friend Rob Stennett, who has his master's in film from USC, who has produced films, who has produced live events, is a celebrated and an award-winning author, and also a pastor and a good friend. So I'm excited to talk to him about story. And the concept or the question that we have in that episode is, does story really have the capacity to change the fabric of culture? So if you're curious about that, like I am, join us on the next Storycast podcast. Until then, we will see you later and keep telling stories that change lives.
Hey, thanks again for joining us on Storycast, where we tell stories that change lives. We'd sure love it if you would hit the like and subscribe buttons, and go ahead and share this with any friends that you think might find it valuable. We look forward to seeing you next time on Storycast.